Hey, welcome to the Hell Has an Exit podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Alzate. This show is not affiliated with any specific 12-step program. If you or a loved one is struggling with an addiction, please find a local 12-step meeting. If you believe you may need detox or drug treatment of any kind, please call 888-699-9395 to speak to a specialist. The show is sponsored by United Recovery Project, a state-of-the-art drug and alcohol rehab facility. You can visit our website at unitedrecoveryproject.com. All right, welcome to Hell Has an Exit. I'm your host, Bryan Alzate. On this show, we interview individuals who have survived hell-ish parts of their lives and live to tell about it. I have my friend Crystal here. I've known Crystal pretty much since high school. And you have a really cool story. Like, I remember like you trying to get clean for a while. Well, I remember you going to meetings with me as like support. And I didn't think you like were doing drugs at that point or like ever imagined you doing drugs. You know, I stayed clean and I would see you come in and out. So yeah. I remember when you spoke to me for the first time, it blew me away. You got a great message. I'm excited. So I guess we can start from the beginning.
What's up, guys? My name is Crystal. So it's so crazy being here with Bryan. We grew up in the same town, and I've known him since literally high school, you know? And Davey crew.
Yeah.
I actually went with Bryan to probably one of your first NA meetings and like with my ex Jimmy, and we were like super excited to be support. And I knew a lot about meetings just because of my mom, and which she struggled with her whole life, and I became part of that and acclimated to it. And I always told myself, like, I'll never be anything like her, you know? And unfortunately or fortunately, I went down that path, and I definitely met hell face to face, and I'm so grateful that I'm here to say that it does.
So when you're going to meetings with me, did you ever think like you'd start going to meet? Like, were you using anything at that time?
Like a ton of shrooms and acid.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing. I stayed away from like anything else for not too much long after that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, I remember I had this, I was friends with Jimmy, and Jimmy did drugs, but he did them so like lovingly. He's like, oh, have Coke, you can have some. He was just like so normal about it. And I remember he was like thinking that if I did shrooms and acid, I would like get off drugs. Literally did acid almost every day for like 4 weeks until I had like the worst acid trip of my life.
Yeah, that was like literally what we did. And like, you know, during that time, it was high school. Like I was like super experimental. I was like a floater, hung out with everybody, never identified or like felt a part of like a certain clique. So it was kind of like I molded into whoever I was kind of hanging out with at that time. And dating Jimmy, he was a super hippied out, just shot out kid. And we had fun, you know, like it was just pure fun. But kids we grew up with, I remember the first time I took a pill and I was like on the back of a golf cart. Like we went to Western's parking lot and I was projectile vomiting off of the fucking back of the golf cart. And I was like, I'm never doing this again, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, how it goes. So a lot of my active addiction stemmed from having like major eating disorder, body dysmorphia, hating just being in my own skin. Like I literally used to cringe looking in the mirror, and I just nothing was ever good enough. And if I'm being honest, like it's still something that's very prevalent in my life. You know, like I've done a lot of work through 12-step fellowship, and thank God I have, because that's always been one thing that always brought me back out. So,
you know, I think like a lot of people don't talk about that. Like I would say 50% of women deal with some type of eating disorder that people don't discuss really in 12-step meetings at all.
And that was the thing, like when I first started to go to the 1,000 rehabs I went to, I was like kind of forced to go to like certain fellowship meetings and to kind of address those issues. And to a certain extent, it was just like I was just there because I was being forced. I was in major denial. I wanted to like hold on and have power over that one thing, you know, and it always had power over me. And it's an ongoing battle, especially like getting older. Like I became a mother in recovery, and your body changes throughout that process. So it was something that like I really had to do a lot of work on.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I was raised in a single family home. Like my mom and my dad divorced, or they were never together since I was like 2 years old. I had a lot of daddy issues, the whole spiel. And my sister is 14 years older than me, and she basically raised me. You know, like my mom struggled a lot of mental health and just like not being present, and would just kind of buy our love with money. You know, like that was the only form of love that she knew how to reciprocate and give. And I took, and I got away with murder, like with pretty much everything. And I had the party house. I had no rules. I had only like my sister, who kind of had that stability. Like she's not one of us. She's never done a drug or a drink in her life. She's just like the complete opposite. And when I was 13, my mom got Baker acted, and it was like one of the hardest times in my life. She was just like at a point where she was hallucinating critters, and we were living at Hard Rock and hotels, and just like shit was just like unraveling, like out of control. So I needed something to kind of fill all of that void, like something to escape with. And I started experimenting, nothing crazy. And it was sophomore year, fast forward, I had to leave Western, like my home high school, and I had to go to like a tech high school, like a special program. And it was there that it was just like shit hit the fan. I want to say like for me, it was like cute and fun in the beginning and stuff. And then it wasn't, you know, like things got really bad. I barely could graduate high school at that point. I was in like a pharmacy technician like program, and I was like stealing a bunch of shit from the pharmacy and paying my teachers with drugs just to graduate. And it wasn't until like I made the decision to like go to college to see like what can I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was there where I was like, I started to find myself, you know, like I started to really apply, and like things went completely 180. Like I studied abroad. I did all these amazing things. I went all over the world. Like my passport was double page. Like, and that was like my freaking addiction. Like I was literally just like on cloud nine, living the best life ever.
Where'd you live?
Spain, Central America, Finland.
In school?
Yeah.
Wow.
When we were at Broward College, like doing all that stuff. And I was like volunteering and like kind of becoming like a human, you know, like trying to identify like who the hell is Crystal? Like how can I make something out of myself, but like be passionate about it at the same time? And I remember like coming back home from living abroad, and I hung out with Bryan, and he was using a certain drug and like was using it a certain way. And I instantly like found an attraction to it, and I just did it. I like shot up. I came home for no reason at all.
You weren't using abroad though.
No, I like drank, you know, like.
Wow.
And so it was really bizarre. Like I literally remember landing the next day, like hung out with old friends.
And shot up for the first time?
Shot up for the first time, like let him do it. And I was like, and he was in such a shit condition. And I was just like, I found that so attractive. Like I did all this amazing shit, and then I come home and that was it, you know? And that was like, shit got really bad.
How old were you?
Probably like 22, 23. And I fell in love with the lifestyle. Like I left that one lifestyle of like chasing like wanderlust to coming home and chasing dope, you know? And like I couldn't get enough of it. And I felt hard on my face. Like I was trying to maintain, and I was like graduating with like 2 degrees and like doing all these things still, trying to manage, and I just couldn't. Like I remember I was like, I'm going to get clean. I'm going to go to the methadone clinic. And I had like $30,000 of school was like giving me every semester. So I like ran through that in like 2 months of being back home. And I told my mom, I was like, I need $15 a day to do this extra credit thing at NSU. So can you help me out with that? And she would literally give me $15 every morning.
Wow.
And I would go get dosed, you know? And I did that for like a year. But
On
like,
methadone?
Yeah. And while I was doing that, I was like 80 pounds soaking wet and smoking crack, shooting crack, and just like barely existing. And I ended up...
Wow, that's crazy to go from like one extreme to the other so fast.
It was bizarre. It was just like out of this world. I ended up getting a teaching job at McFadder, the school I used to teach at. And Flock came around, like Davy, like, and I fell in love with it. I just like used to run away to Flock-ville, and I used to like really think I belonged there. And I'd go back to school and I'd teach.
Was this like Broward Boulevard?
No, like Davy, like right across the street from McFadder. It was like the mecca of Flock.
I didn't know that.
It was bad. And I ended up couple months down the line of like going through this whole thing of like teaching and being all flocked out to being in my car shooting up, and the principal, you know, that feeling of like something's about to go down. And I knew it wasn't the cops. I knew like something else was going on. I get a knock on the window and I turned my head and I was like, fuck. It was the principal of my school.
Wow.
And I was like, excuse me, hang on. And I like continue to use, and I put my car in reverse and almost like run him over and kill him. It's a weird situation, but that was my sister's first boyfriend. And he's also in recovery.
Wow.
So we had this type of relationship where he was like, Crystal, if you don't go get help, you're never going to step foot in a classroom again. So I was like, well.
What was Flakka like?
Crack on meth with a little bit of acid. That's...
Wow.
No, like... I hated it so much that it was just like so powerful, and I couldn't get off of it. Like I literally ran away from home to go live in Flock-ville. I saw like the Flock squad swing, like flying in the trees. Like I always thought people were after me. Like it was just horrible, and I couldn't stop. So right around that time, I ended up taking a little trip to a psych ward because I completely just... I lost it. I got into like a physical altercation with my mom, and I like, my eyes turned red and things got really ugly. And so I got my little psych ward trip. I was there for like 3 weeks, maybe longer. And it was my first time in a psych ward, obviously. And I remember like the first night, I'm like waiting in the emergency room type thing, and my mom's like feeding me a ton of Valium, and I'm like completely fucking gone. And my roommate ends up being like this 92-year-old woman who would like open the metal drawers like all night long and be looking for her daughter. And I was like, oh my God, let me help you find her. You know, like we could do this together. People were like running down the hallways naked thinking they were Jesus, and just like these experiences that like most people don't get to have. So it was like a treat for me. I'm a psych major. I was like loving it.
Wow.
And that was my first like kind of experience in the recovery world. Like they brought in H&I, and that was the first time that I was around H&I. And I think at that moment, like a little mustard seed of hope was planted. But I, of course, wanted to like dig it up and throw it away. You know, like I just wasn't ready. And I don't know, it was a lot of going from treatment center to treatment center. I can't tell you how many I've been to, honestly. Like I felt comfortable there. I loved being institutionalized. I thrived in it. I loved being the best student there. Like it was just, it became another addiction, another lifestyle, you know? And I continued down that path for like a few more years, you know? If I'm being honest, like I would always go to a treatment center. I'd fall in love at the med line, and I'd meet the love of my life. And our plan was to never use again, you know? And just to let you know, it never worked out that way. The holes got deeper. Hell got a lot darker. I could tell you that much. Fast forward, nothing glamorous except more war stories. But The last year of my using, got really bad. I used to wake up every day and like hit the floor and like be on my knees and like beg God for just like end it. Like, please take my life. Like, I can't do this. Like, I was in and out for so long, and for so many times, I literally felt like it was never going to work for me, like, but granted, like, I never put any effort into it. Like, I pretended to get a sponsor, I pretended to do work, but like, it was only to appease other people. It was never for me. Like, I was always going to these treatment centers and like doing all these things just to like make my mom happy, because that's all she wanted. All she wanted was for me to get this, because she never could.
Mm-hmm.
The last year of my using, my mom ended up going into the hospital and never coming back out. It's super emotional. Like, we just celebrated her 3-year anniversary, like her death anniversary. And it's something that like, it still like almost doesn't feel real. And I've done, again, like a lot of work on like the grief and loss and just like acceptance, man. Like, death is one of those things, like pain never goes away, but I never have to use over it. So during that time when my mom was in the hospital, I ended up getting Krokodil. And for people who don't know, Krokodil basically is a drug from Russia, and I had no idea. I really didn't. And I was shooting it up, and I had no other spaces to go on my body. Like, my whole body was just shut down. And I was going in my legs, and what it does is it eats your flesh from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for me to get out of bed and do anything, I would have to like shoot up like a gram. Like, it was just like, I thought I was dying, but like with a flu. I was like, I just have a really bad flu. And come to find out, like, my skin.
What did Krokodil feel like?
I thought it was dope. Like, I didn't know I was
thought it was
getting.
heroin?
Like,
Wow.
yeah, it was just from Pompano, like, and it had a little gasoline smell, and I was like, this is a little different. I don't know. It burns a little more. Whatever.
Wow.
And
yeah, because I've seen people on it, and I've seen people come in like the treatment covered in like, a flesh-eating thing in their arm, and you're just like, those aren't regular track marks, and like, oh, it's Krokodil.
No, dude. And I was like, of course, like the first case in Broward County. So like, my mom goes into the hospital, and like, I'm not like mentally or emotionally able to be present. Like, I was so just like not there, like not under, like cognitively understanding what the hell was really going on. So during that time, like, she was staying at Westside Regional, and I made a visit there. Like, one of my exes came down, saw the condition I was in, and rushed me to the ER.
Wow.
When I got to the ER, they were like, what the fuck is this? And I was the first case in Broward County. They did like this whole thing. They were going to like amputate my legs the next day.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, hang on. Well, I'm only staying here if you guys like load me up with Dilaudid, because they were talking about giving me Suboxone. And I was like, no. Like, I'm going to leave. So that's what they did. I manipulated the situation, and I got what I wanted. And I was like smoking crack in the bathroom in the hospital, and I had like my own private room, and they like came in and they showed me pictures. They're like, we found this in the bathroom. I was like, that's not mine. I don't even know. So they moved me in the same room as my mom, who's dying,
Wow.
like, who's my best friend, like my rock. The only reason I was still alive at that point, And I was like not able to cope, like, whatsoever. It wasn't my plan to be alive. I didn't want to be alive. I wanted to take her place, and that was my plan. So they set me up with a port, because I had no more veins like working in my body, obviously. So I ended up getting stuff delivered daily to the hospital. And I was like shooting up in the port, and I ended up flatlining like in the bathroom. And Nurse Ratchet found me, and she was like, you have to go. And I was like, okay. So before I left the hospital, they came in with like the hazmat suits and like wheeled my mom out at 3 a.m. And come to find out, I'm covered with MRSA. I have cellulitis. It goes into my heart, like all these things. But I had to leave because I'm smoking crack. I'm shooting up. I'm flatlining in their bathroom. Like, it just wasn't going to work out for them. So I get sent home, and during like the last 2 years of my like using, I often got arrested. Like, the charges kept on significantly getting worse and stuff. And I get sent home, And I have like these wound care specialists coming to like clean and bandage my legs because I was like, I really don't want to lose them. Like I kind of need them type thing, you know, like it's something that I gotta have. And so the lady is like coming. I'm like at this point trapping out my mom's apartment. We already are getting evicted. Like it's in like the works. And I was just like, fuck it. You know, like I'm just going to let it ride, see where this goes. The rest of my family like comes and tries to do like an intervention, and I decide this isn't for me, and I jump off like the second story of our apartment. And I was like in the movies, like running through bushes and like jumping and hiding, and I was like, I gotta just get to the car. I just need to go. And I got to the car. it was the craziest shit ever. And I run, and I end up being like homeless in my car for a couple months. And my legs with flesh-eating disease and like not a dollar or a cent to my name. There's like nothing left in me, you know? And my family was unable to go see my mom because they were so scared of me. Like I robbed them of that opportunity to be present while she was taking her last breath. I ended up going to sneaking into the hospital one night, and thank God I did. I stayed the night in the hospital. I nodded out the whole time, but I stayed by my mom's bedside. And I was like, don't you leave me. Like, I'm going to be back. And I left at like 6 a.m, and I got a call at 7 a.m. that she took her last breath, you know? So it was at that defining moment where I was like, all right, now I'm really on a mission to die. Like, there's no point in me living anymore. Like, I have to do this. But I had, like, again, been to so many treatment centers. I have been to fellowship programs that have worked for all these other people. And I was like, so I had that little piece left. Like, it was so small. It was like tinier than a speck of fentanyl, you know, but it was still there. So I ended up like praying. I was like in like a dope hole, and I was like in the corner, and I was like planning on figuring out how to kill myself. I was like, something's got to give. And I was like praying to God to make it end. And like on my way home, I ended up getting arrested for the last time. And charges were a lot more significant, you know? And I ended up in jail, and my dad, like, somehow I was able to get released at that time. I really have no idea how, but he's like, you're going to move in with me. And I was like, this should be fun. You know, like, we've never lived together. And I had a ton of resentment. So I went to live with him. I robbed him blind. I ran away. He ended up setting me up for the very last time. And I sat my happy ass in jail for 3-4 months.
What do you mean set you up?
So I was like, I robbed him of like a bunch of shit in his house. And he was like, oh, I found this program. Because at this point, I had no more of mommy's insurance. So I was like, either going to Bark, which I would like sleep outside of, and I'd be like, sounds like a good idea. I could do this. Or it was jail. And I was like, well, I'm definitely going to go to treatment again. You know, like, I'll take it. He's like, all right, well, you got to come to the house and we'll like get you into this program.
And the cops were there?
No. So I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. And I was like, what did I don't know. Something happened, but I like staked out his house to make sure like the cops weren't there before. And mind you, like, I've been living out of my car, like, that had no front bumper cover. That was on one tire, like, that was not a donut, no power steering. Like, it took everything in me just to make turns. It had like one fucking mirror. Like, it was a mess. It had a melted shroom candle in the back of my car, like in the cup holder, just in case an apocalypse happened. I was ready because I would have light. Like, I was like on it. So I made sure cops weren't there. They definitely weren't like in the neighborhood or whatever. And I was like, all right, well, I have like one last shot to do. So I like save it. It's in my purse, and he's like driving, and we're going to like BSO. We get there, and I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom to like get my fix, my last thing. And So I go to the bathroom, I come out, and the place is surrounded. And I was like, you motherfucker. And I, like, of course, try to run, and I didn't get very far. And it was the greatest gift he could have given me. You know, like, it was that moment that I was being handcuffed for the last time. They're taking off all my jewelry. They're reading me my rights, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. And I remember, like, looking him in the eyes and telling him how much I hated him. Like, crying, he's crying, and I was like, just saying awful things to him. Mm-hmm. Like, he's heartbroken, you know? And there's so much anger, there's so much resentments towards this man, too. So my first, like, appearance in front of, like, Judge Porth, I had drug court, because I, like, didn't want all these felonies. I was like, I'll do the drug court, fuck yeah. My dad, like, comes up and reads this letter, and, like, the whole courtroom is crying. I am on so much, like, detox meds that I can't even, my head's like a bowling ball. It's like, boom, like, against the altar and stuff. Like, it was bad. And Judge Porth was like, you're not going anywhere. And I was like, but hang on, I have a letter. I wrote you a letter. And I, like, tried reading him this letter, and he, like, ripped it up. And I was like, that's a little rude, you know? Like, I felt like we could do something, and because I was, like, just trying to get out. And he's like, Miss Taylor, you ain't going nowhere. And I was like, fuck. Wow. So I was in ISO that whole time at North Broward, NBB, because I had MRSA. I was covered, and I couldn't be around General Pop. And I sat my happy ass in jail, and I started, like, going to the church meetings that they would have just to get out. And I was like, what's there to lose? You know, like, whatever. And it was at that moment, like, where I got saved, like, in jail. And I had, like, this outer body experience where I'm, like, sweating and, like, convulsing. And I was probably detoxing too, but it's besides the point. Like, I felt it. And I made the decision that I'm going to give it one last shot. So that's what I did.
What was your spiritual belief like prior to that?
That was the beautiful thing about, like, all the traveling I did, because I was raised with no religion. Like, my mom was, like, supposedly Jewish. My dad was an atheist. I went to Israel on birthrights, but had no idea what the hell was going on. I just went for the free ride. Mm-hmm. I practiced Buddhism and Taoism and, like, did the church thing with my friends. And, like, I was a lost soul. You know, I just really had no, like, true connection. Like, I was super spiritual, but, like, I always felt not a part of. So,
like, you knew a lot of religion, but you didn't know God.
Exactly. After I did my couple months of my visit, like, my little stint in jail, they sent me to BARC for 60 days. And I remember, like, walking in and, like, meeting my counselor, and I was like, listen to me. Give me a boy band. Don't let me talk to anybody. Like, I really want to do this. I want to give it my all. And, like, I ended up doing some work in there, and I got out, and I took those suggestions. Like, I did the halfway thing that I had been to many times prior and always got kicked out because apparently you're not allowed to drink in halfway. Mm-hmm. Like, it was, like, a whole thing. I ended up, like, going to meetings and, like, truly listening. And I started going to church. And again, like, the program that I work is not a religious one. Like, I define God, like, when I first came in this time, like, my mom was my higher power. You know, like, I would talk to her and ask her for guidance because she was bigger than me. Like, I just didn't want to use, like, anymore. Like, I would have done anything because the pain was so great and I was so fucking scared. Because at that point, like, I really didn't want to die. Like, I really didn't. I wanted to, like, live in her honor. I wanted to get like, any type of relationship back with my family. I would take anything at that point. I took suggestions, like I said, and I'm coming up on 3 years, you know? It's been, if I'd say it's been like rainbows and butterflies, that's a crock of shit, because no matter what, life shows up, you know? But, like, my life today, like I said, I'm a mom, you know? Like, I'm a fiance. I have sponsees. I have an amazing sponsor. Like, I surround myself with the right people. And that's something that I never did before. Like, when I came back in, I was like, I need to like stick with those winners, or like, so they say. And I started to only hang out with women who had time. I didn't give a fuck who they were at that time, just as long as I knew that they were doing the right thing and they had more clean time than me, like years clean, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to find the solution, and like, I don't know, man, it's crazy.
What happened with the crocodile in your legs?
You want to see? So just because I got clean doesn't mean like the consequences of my using just like dissipated. Being pregnant has triggered a whole new like ball game. Like when I gave birth to my first child, my sister and my niece were in the delivery room and they saw my legs for the first time. That was a humble experience. You know, like being a woman in South Florida, like to go to the beach today is so difficult. You know, like it's something that it's going to be a goal down the line, like to go to a plastic surgeon. What can we do? You know, like just to see. And if not, I'm okay with it. You know, like I have a story to tell from it at least and give some type of hope maybe. Like don't fucking do crocodile. Yeah. You know, like I don't know.
Well, at least you have your legs, you know.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's always a silver lining, and I'm able to be like open and honest with my family. And like when I tell you my relationships with them today are kind of like overly amazing. Like they don't leave me alone. And I say that jokingly, but like they really don't leave me alone. And I love it. I have my sister in my life, and me and her had a tumultuous relationship, man. Like I'll speak for myself. When I'm using, like I didn't give a fuck. Like I really wanted no part of you unless you were giving me money or something to help me get money. Doing those like amends to your family, or when I had the opportunity to do that, it was just like, at that point, like one of those things, like, we know, you know, like it was just like that simple. Like it was like I dramatize everything in my head where I'm like freaking out, and it just ends up being super simple. So
what was it like getting over like the resentment with your dad and like the relationship with your dad? Because like, you know, you've heard me speak before, like that was that was probably harder than getting clean, was like my relationship with my father and him not thinking I was clean, and him like, you know, a lot of times when I speak, it's really about my relationship with my dad more than it is about the drug use, you know?
And it's, you know, it's funny, like if I say that I'm like, so I'll start like before my mom died, my resentment was always towards her. Like what she did to me, I was always the victim, and like he was never part of the picture because he was never part of the picture. You know, like I never had to process, or I never had to think about that relationship until it showed up in my lap, you know? In the beginning, I remember like, especially with like him setting me up, like I wanted to hold on to all that shit, and like he cheated on my mom when she was pregnant with me, you know, like he had a whole other family, and I was like, fuck you, I deserve everything I stole from you. He never gave her a dime. Like the whole thing is like super tricky, and I can like honestly say I've done a lot of work on that, you know. Some days are better than others. Like, I'm so grateful that he is in my life. Obviously, like, he's helped me tremendously being clean. But am I over it completely? Probably not. You know, like, I am somebody who has to be in control. You know, like, when I feel out of control, like, I freak out. You know, and that like, being in with my partner, like, in any relationship, if I don't know, I have a very strong personality, so it's taken a lot of work because my dad and me are exactly the same.
Wow.
Like to a T, and I think that's what scared him so much, like, and why he didn't want a relationship with me, or like why there was none. That's a big part of it, is because he sees so much of himself in me, and it scares the shit out of him. So he's heavily involved in my life today. I'm super grateful, like, that he could be present in my daughter's life because he has a lot of making up to do type thing, you know? So, but they did the best they could with what they had. Like, at the end of the day, that's what it was.
How was it dealing with like the body image and like the body dysmorphia and like eating disorder? Like what was different this time where you like chose to like handle those issues?
So I am really good at being super hard and negative towards myself. Like nothing is ever good enough. Like I don't care if I'm the most successful, have the best body in my eyes. Like it's never going to be enough. And it comes to a point where like acceptance is all I can have. And I still battle with it, like being pregnant again, like it's definitely the biggest challenge in my life presently because like I have no desire to use, so for me, like that positive self-talk, like the little silly things that are suggested to like that will help me, they really do. Like, do I want to take all those suggestions? Absolutely not. But like at the end of the day, like I'm not shooting up puddle water in my legs. Like I'm not homeless on the streets. I have an amazing life and like I try to remain in like the good, because like I am worthy. Like my life is worth fighting for, like, and it's okay to not be like in love with the way I look every second of the day, So it's a constant battle though, for sure.
Yeah, I know like a lot of women struggle with that, and that's the reason why they keep using, because they get clean and then they start acting out in other areas. Even for myself, like I couldn't look myself in the mirror when I first got clean. I thought that was like normal. Like I hated pictures. I don't have any pictures, like barely any pictures of me as a kid. I hated seeing myself. I used to get dressed with like the lights off because I didn't want to see myself in the mirror. And then I developed a lot of self-hatred, and like when I got clean, that didn't go away. And my sponsor first suggested giving myself like 7 compliments in the mirror. And it really does change the way you talk to yourself, because I would see a picture of myself and just start with like, oh, I'm ugly, I don't like this, all these pick yourself apart constantly.
And it's so easy for me to want to do that now because like, so I'll give you a perfect example of like life showing up and like my eating disorder playing like a huge part in my life currently, right? So I'm pregnant with my second child who, because of active addiction, I'm going to have to be induced early because of medical reasons, but he's super small. And my first thought when the doctors told me that, I was like, what did I fuck up to do? Like, did I starve this child? Did I deprive? Like, did I overwork out this time? Like, am I doing too much? And I wanted to put everything on me so I can like fester it up and like talk down upon myself. Like at the end of the day, it probably has nothing to do with me. It's a medical thing, and instead of beating myself up, I reached out to women who have struggled with this, who have similar experiences, because I can't ever get through shit alone. Like I can't. Like I have a ton of tools and resources and I've learned a ton, but like I'm a forever student. Like, and that's one thing that I love about a 12-step fellowship is like the amount of growth you can do is endless. This isn't like, okay, you do the 12 steps and you're like cured, like you're ready to go. No, I wish you, but like this is a lifelong process, and like hopefully what I struggle with today won't be what I struggle with a year from now. Like hopefully I'm able to overcome some of these things. It's really cool.
And like when you say like doing the work, so like a lot of people don't understand, like I know for myself, I can say like I've done a lot of work, and for me that's reading and writing. Like I've done a financial inventory, I've done an inventory on just relationships, I've done an inventory on my spiritual relationships, on like how I felt about God growing up to my relationship with God now. I've done first steps on lust, I've done all these different things. And it's not just like, oh, someone, like you have a conversation with someone. It's like, you do some type of packet or the step working guide or something. And, I see people in recovery struggle, stay clean. And you're like, dude, you don't do any work. Like you don't do anything, And a lot of times people think that going to the meetings and staying clean and like talking about the concepts or I don't even understand what their concept is, but like they have this idea that they're doing the same things that you're doing. But for me, like if you're not putting like pen to paper, going over it with a sponsor, even in therapy, like getting into therapy or doing something about the issue, you really can't say that you're not doing anything.
And I'm somebody who thrives with kind of having tasks and to fulfill those things, right? And step work, when I first started, like I loved it, and I love it today. None of that has changed without doing the work, like actually taking some time for Crystal, because life gets full. Like when you get a life, it becomes it's a lot. I value that time with self and with my higher power, and to tell my truth, to speak my truth and have no judgment. And like, if I didn't do that, I would be so sick. I would be miserable clean. And that to me sounds worse than what I was doing, like in active addiction, and I am somebody who's super aware of my defects, very aware of what I need to work on. And I'm not somebody who's a stranger to therapy. I have been in therapy since I was 7. I was hypnotized. I was had a ton of trauma, like super exciting stuff. And without those things, like I wouldn't be the person that I am today. Like it just doesn't just because people go to meetings doesn't mean anything changes. Like, like it's great to get involved and to be present in a fellowship, but unless you do the work like internally, like nothing's it's just, for me, like it'd be like just a waste of time. I don't know.
I know, and I feel like the longer I stay clean, it's just more and more obvious watching people that it's just like, because I used to stay clean and watch people and be like, I don't know why they don't get it. Like, I don't, I'd feel bad for people. And then years go by and you see someone's never done a 4-step. To me, it's like, that's when you get introduced to yourself. That's when you meet yourself. Like, and then you get people trying to meet everybody else. You don't even know who you are yet.
When I first came into the rooms and stuff, people would the 4th step, and make it this big thing. I was ready. I was like, let's do it. Let's go. Yeah. I was, because the jig is up, I know what I've done. I know the shit that's happened in my life. Let's do something to change how, to change at least, I don't know. It's crazy.
I remember when I was doing my 8th step, you make a list of all the persons you've harmed. And I wrote my mom, my dad, Robin, everybody. And I did it in a way that was I was really feeling like a piece of shit, just writing it all these people, CVS, Walgreens, Publix, schools, just feeling like such a scumbag. And the last person on the list was myself. And I remember going through the whole list, feeling like such a scumbag. And I'll never forget my sponsor was like, why are you last? And I was just like, I don't know. And he told me to cross it out and put my name on the top. And there's just something about that motion where crossing my name out from the bottom and putting it at the top. And I started to cry. And I started to realize that, like the literature says, we've harmed many people, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Well, if I'm not doing the step work, I'm not doing anything to amend myself. And that's what the steps are for. And all these people that I've harmed, all they want me to do is get better anyways, So that instance, I started to not feel shame about doing better in life or putting myself ahead of someone else, because when you're using, you have so much shame and just guilt and all these things that are wrong with me. And you don't really see it until you start writing it on paper. You don't see how shame affects your relationships, how you are at work, how you are just out with people. And the disease of addiction is so much more than using drugs. We self-harm on a daily basis with the way we talk to ourselves, the negative self-talk, and it affects every relationship that we have.
And it's a good point. You know, like I had only been in these relationships where I'd fall in love in the detox line, you know, like as an adult woman per se, or like people who were doing the same things I was, an active addiction. Like, and I really in my head, like, you are nothing but a pawn. Like, and to be in a relationship that is like beyond healthy almost, like I self-sabotage it because I don't self-sabotage it presently, but it definitely took me a while to realize that like he wanted nothing from me and I didn't need to have anything from him. And I didn't understand fully what that meant until I was like in it. I can say that I needed to figure out how to love myself or to even like myself before anything. That was my main objective, like coming in and like giving this a shot, because like we talked about, like I couldn't stand the person that I saw looking back at me. Like I literally, it would make me sick to my stomach. So I knew that in order for me to have any successful relationships with anybody, I needed to be in a relationship with myself and allow myself that opportunity to figure out, like, how can I love myself today? And it got to, I was like, had a lust relationship, I had a like relationship, and today I have a love relationship. You know, like it's ever evolving. And it's because I did the work, you know, like in the beginning, like I said, like, for instance, like my mom was my higher power. My mom is no longer my higher power. Like that has changed over time because of like this whole process. And I think that's my favorite part about being in a 12-step fellowship program is there are no rules. There's guidance, you know, and to really like be open and honest with yourself is the greatest gift, because like I would only be robbing me. Like you wouldn't give a shit if I like lied on my 4-step. Like what does it do for you? You know, like it only harms us, like me. So
I think like when you first get clean, you just feel like, oh, well, I'm not on drugs. That's that. And then you start to realize that even though I'm not using, I'm still having a lot of issues. And I remember I got kicked out of school twice clean. You know, I was still stealing the car. I was still robbing, you know, from my parents. Constant liar. Like I couldn't tell the truth. Like I just couldn't. You know, my mom would be like, "Where are you?" I'd be at Walmart. I'd say, "I'd get my Kmart." You know, like I just was compulsively lying, and then wondering why I was doing this and not really being aware of it. And then you work some steps. Now you're aware of it, and you start to really hate yourself, and you feel like you're, you know, the Antichrist. And you know, for a long time, I really felt like, you know, and like the steps talk about it. They say like, you know, many of us believed we were sociopaths, and like I really thought I was a sociopath. Thought there was something wrong with me.
Oh, yeah.
Thought I needed like a freaking exorcism. You know, I thought like I needed something like was wrong, like a moral dilemma. And as I worked the steps, I realized that there are things that we do, and just having awareness is half the battle, and that I can choose to act out on it. And today, you know, I really don't lie. Like I catch myself like wanting to say like bend the truth, and I can practice telling the truth, and I feel better when I do those things. Like I don't feel like a liar. You know, I feel good about who I am today.
when I first got clean, it's funny that you, like with the lying, like for me, it was stealing. Like I loved
Me too.
to steal. Like I felt like Walmart, Publix, like everybody owed me. And when I got clean, I was like living in halfway and I had like the food stamp thing and it was like the greatest thing. But I had a sponsor at the time and she would make me call her every time I was at Walmart because I would steal clean and I would like get off on it. I was like, fuck yeah, I did it again. And then like,
yeah, I got them.
So as time went on and I started doing a little bit of work and like the guilt started to come, you know, like, and the shame about me stealing when I'm not an active addiction. And I was like really proud of myself the first time I went to Walmart in the self-checkout line and didn't steal. I was like, this is huge. Like, and even today, like me and Rusty will be like shopping and I'll walk out of the store and be like, you know, it's crazy. Like, I don't even have the desire to steal. Like, that's huge. Like, people don't realize, like, that's a big deal. And I've had...
Because once you start stealing, it doesn't go away. Like, when I go into someone's nice house, like, I still think about stealing. You know what I mean? Like, once you've crossed those lines in life, you can't uncross them. You know, you can't unlearn how to steal,
No.
you know?
And since being clean, like, my sister and her husband had, like, a restraining order. Like, I wasn't allowed in the neighborhood. Wow. Like, I would be, like, arrested or turned away at the gate type thing. And for my mom's funeral, like, I didn't know people give money. And I was, like, at the bottom of my barrel, and people were, like, had, like, envelopes. And I was, like, this is a come up, bro. Mm-hmm. And I was, like, taking all the money, and me and my 6'4" brother-in-law, 280 pounds, get into a physical altercation at my mom's funeral service. And I'm like, how dare you accuse me of stealing $100? Mm-hmm. Like, blah, 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 like blood dripping down my arm. Like, mm-hmm. It was like literal a fucking mess. Fast forward to the other day, they're asking me to, like, watch their dogs alone in their house, like, without them there. Like, that's crazy. And we, like, can sit around and, like, laugh about it today because, like, I'm no longer that person that they have to fear having in their house. You know, like, my niece texted and called me today about her boyfriend drama, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is a life beyond my wildest dreams, because 3 years ago I had restraining orders, and, like, they literally hated me. Like, and now my sister is trying to become a certified doula just so she could be next to me in the hospital because of COVID restrictions. You know, like, that's the crazy shit that happens. It's just comical. Like, it's those behaviors that we've had for so long that, like, as you do the work, you start, like, making that mental shift. Like, things start rewiring, and, like, you learn to be a genuinely good person, hopefully, you know?
And, like, that's the thing is, like, so I remember, like, when I first got clean, you know, they would say, like, don't sleep with newcomers, and, like, people with time don't sleep with newcomers, and, like, all this thing. Like, I thought it was just, like, an honorable thing to do. Like, just leave these girls alone, you know?
Right.
And as I started to get healthier, I started to see when someone was sick. Because when you're sick, you don't see who's healthy and who's sick. You just kind of, like, whatever, hey, what's up, you know? And I remember there was a time where I was like, I'm not attracted to someone who's just getting clean. Like, I have zero attraction to somebody. I don't even see, not that I see myself better than them. It's almost like pedophilia. Like, I'm just not into somebody who's just getting clean, because I know how alone and desperate and suicidal I was when I got clean. And I know how, like, fucked up I was, and, like, spiritually broken. Like, I had zero relationship with God. I was totally empty.
Yep.
Like, I'm not attracted to someone who's getting clean. Like, I'm just not. Even someone who's been clean for a while who hasn't done the work, I'm not trying to go down that hole with somebody, you know? That's the thing when you start, like, getting healthier, right? Like, we talk about being sick in the rooms all the time, you know? But there is a point in your life where you get to a point where you're not doing something because you don't want, or because someone tells you not to. You're not doing it because you don't want to. And that's how I feel with being clean. Like, I love being clean. It's still a challenge, but I'm no longer attracted to being homeless anymore and, you know, smoking crack with people with no teeth. You know, sometimes I can be, though, which is, like, the fucked up part. Yeah. You know, I was talking to someone the other day, and he's like, man, it must be really hard to, like, go out with people that drink and not drink. And I'm like, honestly, what's hard for me is when I'm at the red light, and I can tell the difference between homeless people that are homeless, just, like, have really bad luck, maybe, like, some mental illness,
right,
and someone who's out there getting it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's harder for me to be at the red light and see someone who's out there getting it and not want to hop out the car and be like, let's go, like, who's got, you know, whatever. Like, that's harder for me than sitting around people. And everyone's different. Someone who drinks, like, that might be hard for them. But, like, I wasn't much of a drinker. Like, I like smoking crack, you know, on Broward Boulevard.
Exactly. You know? Dude, like, and that's the thing. Like, when I literally live probably 2 blocks down from the methadone clinic, and I literally see the same kids I was using with the homeless kids who didn't want to use with me anymore because I was too much of a junkie. Like, panhandling out there still, and, like, me and my family are, like, driving by them, and it's just, like, a crazy reminder to think, like, you could in a snap get back to that point, because and if I didn't do the work, you know, like you were just saying, like, that's not attractive to you, like, it actually, like, freaks me the fuck out. Like, I feel at this point in my life, I'm too scared anyway, you know, like, we got clean where we got high, you know, like, and for a lot of people, that's not something that's even, like, fathomable. And for me, it wasn't. Like, I was, like, convinced. I was like, this is never gonna be something that could work for me. Like, I have to leave. And I would, like, go to, like, Delray or, like, West Palm or something because that was so much farther. But I brought myself with me. Oddly enough, like, I would end up getting high because I didn't do the work and nothing changed. Just because, like, I took myself from, like, the one trap house, there's plenty more wherever I went, and I would always find them, you know? And I was always attracted to the sicker person, you know? Like, and that was after I would do the 30-day, like, song and dance and get my A+ certificate in rehab. Like, I thought I was good to go. But people, places, and things, like, I never wanted to be attracted to the people who are doing the right thing because it scared the shit out of me, you know, like, but today that's all I want. Like, I want better. I want more for myself. Like, my dreams never stop. And, like, I have these endless amount of goals that I know I can attain because I'm staying clean, you know, and it's amazing.
I know for me, like, sponsorship was like a whole nother world of, like, recovery that, like, I never even thought. Like, when you get clean, you're not thinking about how sponsorship's going to help you, like, if you become a sponsor. Like, when you do your first step, you're not thinking, like, one day I'm going to be reading this to a sponsee when he's doing his first step. And I remember the first time I ever went over someone's first step, I would do this thing where I would read an answer and they would read an answer. And one of the questions was, like, what do you want out of recovery? And he had, like, you know, I want to get my family back and, like, all these things. And, like, he had, like, this long, beautiful paragraph. And I look at mine and it said, I want to be able to sleep. And I started to cry with, you know, 2 years clean, a year clean, doing the first step with somebody. And he was looking at me like, are you okay? And I was just like, that's what it was like. Like, I literally remember being a 17-year-old kid writing my step work in high school, right? I'd be in high school, sitting by myself, doing my first step and answering a question like, what do you want out of recovery, or what do you see yourself, you know, doing later on in life? And I wanted to sleep because like when I got clean, I didn't take sleep meds. I couldn't sleep for months. I thought like I was never going to be able to go to sleep. I would just wander around, roll around in my bed, and then the alarm clock would go off.
No, you still look like shit, like a while down after. Yeah. But look at you today, you know, like, and it's crazy. Like, having a family was not even something like, I was not the little girl who like planned their wedding and like had their dream dress. Like, I wanted to continue to travel the world and like just be like this wanderer and like meet like-minded people. And, you know, I still have that in me. And it's super important for me to like remember that I don't have to let go of everything that I was like, that I used to be, that was like instilled in me. Like, because before like things were bad and like using was like cute and fun, like I was like a little girl and like in little La La Land, like always dreaming, you know, like what can I do next? And it's super crazy to think like now I'm trying to instill that in like my daughter, you know, like in my kids, because like I work with like super corporate America people and they have no idea about anything and like at all except like my boss. And they're like, oh, you deserve to have a drink today. And I'm like, if only you knew what that even meant, you know, like, and they come to me for advice on certain things. And I'm like, what is this world? You know, like, it's little things like that the dream's still there. Like the goals, the ambition and stuff, like definitely got reawoken for me. And I feel like I'm kind of like the opposite. Like when I first got clean, like I hit the ground hard. Like I knew what I wanted and I knew that I was going to give it my all. And that's what I've been doing. You know, like nothing's off limits. It's really not.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Love you very much. You have such a cool story. I'm sure, you know, your mom is extremely proud of you, and you definitely are honoring her the way you live your life.
Thank you so much. This is super cool. Thank you for having me.
This show is not affiliated with any specific 12-step program. If you or a loved one is struggling with an addiction, please find a local 12-step meeting. If you believe you may need detox or drug treatment of any kind, please call 888-699-9395 to speak to a specialist. This show is sponsored by United Recovery Project, a state-of-the-art drug and alcohol rehab facility. You can visit our website at unitedrecoveryproject.com.